It was a cold evening in New York. The city lights flickered like distant stars against the dark glass of 1,000 apartment windows. Ethan sat alone in a quiet café, staring at the empty chair across from him, the same chair where she once sat, smiling, laughing, leaning in close, as if the whole world existed in that small space between them. But now she was gone. He had spent weeks trying to understand what happened. One moment she was warm, present, and kind. The next, distant, confusing, silent. He kept asking himself, was she ever truly interested? Or had he imagined everything? And as he sat there, with a notebook open in front of him, he remembered a line he once read from Marcus Aurelius: "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Ethan realized he had spent too long trying to decode words, messages, emojis, replies, instead of watching the truth that was always in front of him. Her actions. That night, something changed. He promised himself one thing: he would no longer chase confusion. He would learn to see clearly. He would learn to observe, not assume. And that's when his journey began. Weeks later, he met someone new, Ava. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't trying too hard. But there was something quiet about her, something he couldn't quite name. She didn't tell him she liked him. She didn't flirt in the obvious ways. Yet he felt something. The same way one feels the warmth of sunlight through a window, before even seeing the sun. So he started watching, not like a detective, but like a Stoic student of human nature. And what he noticed would change everything. The first thing he saw, she found reasons to be near him. It started small. She'd pass by his office holding a coffee cup, saying she was just walking around. She'd show up at the same cafe he liked, pretending it was a coincidence. One day, she even asked him for help fixing something on her laptop, something she easily could have figured out herself. Ethan smiled, not because he felt superior, but because he finally understood. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe what your nature requires, for that is what you must follow." A woman drawn to you doesn't need to make it obvious. Her nature pulls her toward you. It's not calculation, it's instinct. And he remembered how when he liked someone, he'd do the same. He'd linger a little longer. He'd invent reasons to talk. It wasn't need, that it was gravity, so he didn't overthink it. He simply noticed and let it be. The second thing he observed, she mirrored him. One evening, they were sitting at that same cafe. He spoke slowly, calmly, taking sips between words. She matched his rhythm, her breathing, her tone, even her pauses. He smiled again, noticing how her posture relaxed when his did, how her laughter came naturally after his smile. Psychology might call it mirroring, but to Ethan, it was something deeper. It was resonance. The Stoics believed that when two souls align, they begin to reflect each other. It wasn't imitation, it was connection. When a woman is deeply attracted, she doesn't copy, she harmonizes. And Ethan, for the first time, stopped asking, "Does she like me?" Instead, he asked, "What energy am I bringing into this space?" Because the more peace he carried within, the more peace she mirrored back. The third thing, she grew curious about his mind. Unlike the others before, Ava didn't ask about his car, or job, or where he traveled. She asked, "What keeps you calm when life gets hard?" She wanted to know about his discipline, his silence, his thoughts. One night, as they walked by the river, she asked him what he believed the purpose of pain was. No one had ever asked him that. He thought of Marcus again. What stands in the way becomes the way. And when he said those words aloud, Ava just smiled softly and said, "I like that. You don't run from struggle. You face it." That's when Ethan realized, a woman who's truly attracted to you doesn't just want your time. She wants your essence. She wants to understand the machinery of your mind, the reason behind your calm. That night he wrote in his journal, "True attraction is curiosity without agenda." The fourth thing, she respected his boundaries. Ethan had grown used to people who wanted constant attention, who texted endlessly, who got upset when he didn't reply right away. But Ava was different. When he said he was working on something, she simply said, "All right, I'll let you focus." And she meant it. She didn't chase validation. She didn't play emotional chess. She gave him space, not because she didn't care, but because she respected who he was. Marcus once wrote, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." Ethan finally understood. A woman who feels something real doesn't disturb your peace. She fits into it. He began to see that this kind of respect was attraction in its purest form. It wasn't noisy. It wasn't demanding. It was patient, still, grounded, and he thought, maybe the strongest sign of love isn't who clings to you, but who quietly supports your purpose without needing to control it. The fifth thing, she remembered the small things. Weeks later, they met again at the cafe. He ordered his usual black coffee, no sugar. Before he could say anything, she smiled and said, "Already got it for you." He was surprised. He hadn't mentioned his order for weeks, but she remembered. Later, she quoted something he'd said in passing, a line about how discipline brings peace. She laughed and said, "I thought about that this morning when I didn't want to get up." Ethan smiled. That's when he realized, when a woman truly sees you, she keeps pieces of you in her mind. She remembers not to impress you, but because your energy leaves an imprint. The Stoics taught that attention is the highest form of love. To notice someone deeply is to say, "I see your soul." And that's what Ava was doing. Not through grand gestures, but through awareness. Then came the sixth thing. She became vulnerable. It was a rainy night when it happened. They were walking, the streets glistening under streetlights. Ava stopped suddenly and said, "There's something I've never told anyone." Ethan waited. She told him about her father, how she hadn't spoken to him in years, how she still carried guilt she couldn't explain. Her voice didn't tremble, but her eyes softened. For a moment, she wasn't hiding behind the armor the world had made her wear. That was the moment Ethan felt it, the quiet truth. A woman doesn't open her heart to a man she doesn't trust. She becomes vulnerable when she feels safe. And he realized that the calm he'd built, through pain, discipline, reflection, had created that safety. She wasn't falling for him because he said the right things. She was falling because his presence didn't judge or rush. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Ethan smiled to himself. He'd spent months being the opposite of what hurt him, and now life was rewarding him with peace, not chaos. Weeks passed. They continued to meet. There was no confession, no grand moment of "I love you," but there didn't need to be. Ethan no longer needed words to know. He saw it in how she showed up, how she listened, how she respected him. He saw it in the way she looked at him, not like a man she wanted to own, but like a man she was at peace being near, and that's when it all made sense. The six things weren't about decoding women. They were about understanding energy, about seeing what's real, not what's performed. A woman who's deeply attracted to you doesn't chase or manipulate. She moves with grace. She aligns with your calm. She respects your purpose, remembers your essence, and opens her heart only when she knows your presence is safe. And a Stoic man doesn't rush to capture that. He simply honors it, through gratitude, not control. Months later, Ethan sat at that same cafe again, the same place where his story began. But this time he wasn't searching for answers. He wasn't overthinking texts or chasing meaning in words. He had become the man he used to look for in others, calm, aware, grounded. He looked out the window at the city lights and smiled, because he finally understood. You don't find love by chasing signs. You find it by becoming the kind of person who can recognize it when it's already there. And when you do, you see that attraction isn't a mystery. It's a mirror. It reflects who you are, what you radiate, and how deeply you've learned to live in peace with yourself. Ethan closed his notebook. Inside it, he'd written just one line. She doesn't have to say it. The peace between us already did. If you've ever found yourself overthinking someone's feelings, remember this. You'll never need to decode real interest. It shows itself in actions, in silence, in small moments that speak louder than words. And if you want to attract that kind of love, start where Stoicism always begins, within. Build peace, discipline, and presence. Because the more grounded you become, the easier it is to see who's meant to walk beside you. With that said, thanks for watching. And until next time.